Live locally, earn globally.
Many people flew into this country in 1993 and very few of them actually survived.
Money comes and goes in life. And time is something that we will not get back.
Out here, everyone's happy to lose the race as long as someone wins.
I read a book once, but I may listen to an audio multiple times.
I find it interesting you say that because I have actually found it. Today, I have with us is Gautam Ganglani, the CEO of Right Selection and the author of Breaking Bread, who took this business from a bookshop to a global model and has scaled it all the way out there into something that is now known as a necessity for the community. Gautam, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Jigar. It's an absolute pleasure to be with you today.
Right. Listen, before we jump into, who we are and what we do, I want to hit on the origin story. I want to hit on who were you when it all started out and prior to that. So where did you grow up?
So, I was born and brought up in London, UK. So my foundational years, the first 20 years of my life and my schooling, education was in London in the UK. Shuttled between day school to boarding school to university there. Yeah.
Right. And you obviously, we're speaking here about someone who puts people together, who curates events. So the expectation is that this is a very social person, right? But let me ask you this question. Does the 18-year-old version of yourself believe what it sees?
The 18-year-old believe what it sees. Not really. I mean, when I look back, it's like hard to believe where I was in my teenage years to where I have become today. And I guess it comes from the stories and the experiences I had that evolved over time.
Right. But there's also obviously that stories and experiences that you were having at that age, which must have definitely shaped you. So were you more of like a reserved person or were you the social butterfly?
I think, I don't know, ambivert word comes to mind in today's time, the way I describe and reflect back. But I did go through a very difficult childhood for about 3 years, and that triggered a realization of helping me realize who I really am.
What happened there?
So at the age of 13, I was in a boarding school, and I went through a difficult experience where I was teased, humiliated, bullied. So my self-esteem, discomfort, loneliness all crept in. And I went into a shell. It was very quiet. And my studies were, not at their best. And I went to my dad at that time. And I said to him, going through this experience, what would you suggest? And he said to me, I'm going to give you 3 pieces of advice that I really give you today is continuous learning, surround yourself with the right people, and take action. And these 3 pieces of advice were what he gave me and guided me. He helped me change schools at that time, which was a big decision. And I was surrounded by people who were uplifting, encouraging, inspiring. Suddenly, my whole personality, my self-esteem suddenly felt better. My studies, I realized the importance of learning, and I took action. And suddenly, there was a big shift in what I went from an introvert appearance to suddenly being surrounded by the ambience of the right people and the ambience of the environment. Suddenly there was a shift in education, in participation, in events. And I suddenly became the person who made things happen on the weekend. What's the plan? And it was a big shift. And that to me, coming out of just seeing the correlation between who do you spend time with, made a big impact on my life.
But, having had that traumatic experience at the age of 13, I'm sure that there were certain insecurities that would have set in. So in those forming years of a person's life, right? Like for me, yes, the early childhood matters as well, and they, leave marks on people's personalities. But then I usually notice that what happens from the age of, let's say, 9, 10, all the way up until 18, 20, 25, really shapes what they become, when they are finally an adult, from a maturity sense.
Right.
You brush it off saying, oh, I changed the school and I was put in surrounding people who were happier and brighter and, shining. But let's talk about the insecurities that you were facing at that point, because you were all of a sudden put in a surrounding where people are actually the extreme opposite of where you want to be and what you want to be.
Yeah, I mean, what comes to my mind from what you're sharing is that um, the questions that you ask yourself in that environment, because you're not, it was like, am I good enough? The insecurities of your confidence levels, your personality. You were discovering yourself in the teenage years. It's all about self discovery. You go with your natural instincts. Whether it's
But that's the journey. What was the brain saying? Where were the fears? What was the insecurity?
the insecurity was, I felt one needed some kind of validation by being that I have a friend circle that
Do
I
people like me? Am I good enough?
absolutely,
Let me flip it around. I'm speaking to a CEO of a very successful business. I'm speaking to someone who is in a very powerful position, can make things happen, can move people on and off the tables. Let me ask you that question. Does that insecurity still exist? Does it creep in every now and then?
absolutely.
Right. And I think that's critical, right? Because unfortunately, we paint a very rosy picture on social media. And
Yeah.
people assume that, oh, you have to overcome insecurity in the sense that it no longer exists if you want to achieve success. I think what's critical over here is that people in the audience need to realize that insecurity does not disappear. What happens is that you learn to manage it and you learn to not just live with it, but thrive while it continues to exist and do whatever it's meant to do.
Right.
Right. And now, I mean, if we talk about people and relationships, and I'm talking to someone who was, in a sense, bullied, in a sense, teased, in a sense, made to feel inferior. When did it occur to you that in life it's actually people that you surround with or people in your life actually matter, and not just in life, but then in business also?
Yeah. So as I shared briefly in my earlier childhood, the change of the people I surrounded with, I experienced 3 years of a difficult childhood because the environment was toxic. When I reflect back, that's how I felt. It was a toxic environment, and it helped. My reaction to that toxic environment was either to embrace it, or I went into a negative shell and I started questioning myself. Am I good enough? Am I in the right place? Who am I? And the moment I did have that shift at age 16, and I suddenly realized that these great friends that I made, the environment that I was in, my confidence suddenly rose, my self-esteem suddenly felt, and I saw the direct correlation of the people you spend time with and the shift in my personality, the shift in my outlook of life. And I felt it brought out my best self, because within 6 months, my friend circle was so strong. And I was the one where my natural instincts of where are we going this weekend? And I knew once you put a specific date, time, venue, and you just shared it with the friends, everyone came together, and you suddenly being the person who connected people, brought people together. And I learned that in the age of 16 to 18. And then since then, it's just got, grown and immersed into my life as well, and being part of the life I live today.
I mean, listen, growing up, you also mentioned something about, and you brought in the subject of your father, that he helped you change schools. And, I know that you're a part of a family business. How was it, growing up and taking that decision? Because I personally come from a family business background. I've had to take that decision, and I know it's not an easy one. So I want to understand, what were some of the thoughts, some of the dynamics that were at play when you decided to be a part of it?
Yeah, for me, I think the great thing is when dad and me have had a fantastic relationship from a very young age. That bond was built from a young age with a lot of common interests, be it in sports, where we used to go to the cricket matches live, to the most similar movies. And we found the baseline of that relationship was far more than just a father and son. Whether you say as a best friend, as a mentor, as a coach, as a guide, as a parent, obviously. And that relationship from a young age just continued getting stronger and stronger. That in my holidays, I used to spend time in going to the office just to get a feel of what's happening, listen to the conversations, familiarize myself with the business. So that familiarity combined with the great relationship that we had is what built into starting the business together.
Listen, I don't think, I mean, listen, if you don't have a good relationship with your parents, I don't think anyone's even got a choice that they're going to be able to enter the family business
Absolutely.
environment. But so for me, I'm going to take that as a granted that anyone and everyone who's thinking about entering into the family business has an existing healthy, good relationship. But then there's a difference, right? Like, I mean, there's a person that you know as dad, there's a person you know as your father. And then all of a sudden, that person has also been into business, doing things the way they've been doing, with their own trajectory for what growth means, for their own appetite for change at a certain age as well, because it just becomes comfortable, right, to continue doing what you're used to doing. It's not that they don't appreciate or they're not knowledgeable enough about the need for change. How does that come into play? Like, before you make the decision, did you not have to think about these fears?
Actually, it was very natural and organic for me because me and my dad, our relationship was we understood we have different strengths and we complemented each other. So it seemed a very natural instinct to join him in the family business. He was in the UK initially, in Africa. Those were his initial, 30 years before moving to Dubai. So when he moved here in 93 and I joined him in 95, it was just a very natural progression.
Whose vision was it, what he started in 1993 with that bookshop? Was it his vision or was it yours?
It was absolutely my dad's vision in 1993.
Okay, and how does it feel 2 years in? You've done it, but how does it feel to walk in someone else's vision?
I guess he welcomed me into his vision and it felt like a collaborative vision because
There were no hesitations, there were no fears in your heart, like, am I doing the right thing by joining him? Is his vision the right vision for myself? I mean, it's someone else's plan. Do I go away and make that as my plan? No concerns?
the beauty of my relationship with my dad is that he told me, let's give it 6 months and you experience it for yourself. If this is a good fit for you, let's grow it together. And if it isn't, I'll respect your decision. So it was never feeling that I was asked to, or it was any compulsion, or I felt any discomfort because he welcomed me with open arms and said, give it 6 months. And that's one thing we've always done for each other is that let's explore this. Let's have a pilot. I want us to feel that this resonates. So then you take ownership of it. It's not my vision or your vision. Let's make it our vision. And that was his approach. And those 6 months is what I experienced, that I love this business because I can see we can grow this together way beyond just a bookshop. The kind of people we met, the kind of conversations we were having, just uplifted me. And I felt, wow, this can grow and we could take it places.
I mean, it's one thing where you're welcome. It's another thing that you're also both aligned as a father and a son relationship. But then there's something called ground reality. And in reality, when two people come together, they each come with their own recipe. As much as your visions are aligned, the strategy and the path can never be identical in two people's mind. So what eventually matters is two people or more agree that they have the same objective, the vision, the end goal is the same. The road may be different because there's no way I can imagine the road you're imagining, right? But as long as we agree at the destination, that where we head, we're going to be fine. But even when we're walking together, because you're not walking your path and I'm not walking my path, what's also going to matter is there's something called compromise.
Right.
What was it that you saw in that 6 months of your pilot, right? That with your dad, in the sense saying, right, you saw your father shift and compromise his way of doing things for the greater good. Was there any shift?
Nothing specifically stands out except the fact, I guess, that
could have stemmed from a disagreement. So was there ever a disagreement about something? It doesn't have to be a fight. It doesn't have to be a massive debate, but could be just something that you both disagree upon something.
We had a ritual, if I can call it that anytime we had a difference of opinion, we would sit down and have a conversation about it and be.
So you would have had those, right?
Absolutely. And we still have them till today.
Right.
25, 30 years on, we still have conversations. He looks at himself. He used to use this analogy, or someone else told us that you take a car and you say, Gautam, you're the accelerator. You want to go with speed. You want to keep moving. And I'm the brake and the steering wheel to keep the direction stable, and that we play to each other's strengths in that way. So we do have differences till today, and we have a discipline that let's have a chat about this.
And in those chats, were you allowed to win any of those conversations?
Absolutely. I would say I won most of them.
Okay.
Because it's like he never had, we got to have a 360 degree view on a decision we make. It's his perspective, it's my perspective, but let's understand each other's perspective. Let's take time to share that, and then we're taking an informed decision as opposed to just my lens or his lens. So we just agreed, if there's a difference of opinion, let's sit down and listen attentively to each other and then take an informed decision. And if we can call it agree to disagree, if we had to, there was no, um, you
And
know,
there has to be a decision at the end of it all, right?
exactly,
So,
exactly.
I mean, when did it finally feel like, um, was it from the get go or it came along the journey that it felt like it's yours too?
That question triggers, it actually, it's when the customers, the friends, the families we met, I'd say it was 10 years. The first 10 years, I was Ram Ganglani's son.
Right.
And 10 years into the business, people started telling, oh, you're Gautam's dad. And that itself was like, okay, because now it meant you've made your presence felt, that he was so proud. And he said to me, I'm so glad that not once, but numerous times in the last month, people have said, you're Gautam's dad. So he said, obviously now your name is out there enough that you built your own brand and credibility. Whilst we're a father and son team, this was my dream and vision for you, that I know that I can be there as your support, but I want you to lead this business.
This is something I've written about in my book as well, which is that something's going to be hard to start. I mean, no doubt, right?
Yeah.
That's why not many people are able to move on from thoughts.
Right.
It's always going to be hard to start. But then what I've learned from my journey, and I have discussed it over there, is it's actually even harder to sustain, to evolve, and to grow from once you're on. It's hard to switch on, but it's actually harder to then grow from there.
Yeah.
And kudos to you, I mean, yeah, walking into an environment where there's friction on day one, whether you like it or not, there's difference of opinions. We're different humans. We're not all the same. We don't think alike. We all have had different experiences. For you to walk into that environment and then be able to take that leap where people no longer know you from the sense of respect and credibility as your father's son, but you shift the narrative. And I mean, listen, I have seen this happening in my life too. I didn't join my family business because I didn't believe I had value to add to it, right? So it was for a different cause that I didn't join it. But then on the human emotional element, I mean, I'm sure, it makes you really proud to see that you were able to make them proud.
Right.
Is that one of the reasons you keep going?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm so grateful to have this father and son relationship in the business sense for the last 30 years. In fact, I hear that from other people, and I see other friends that it's not very common anymore. It was common in the Asian culture years ago, but today it's becoming more and more rare.
I mean, the first time you walked into this office of mine, both of you were together, and I found him the more charming one, and I was very clear about it. Listen, he can sell you 10 times over. Let me be very blunt and honest with you.
Absolutely.
He's got not just the gift of the gab, but he is a blessed person who also spreads his happiness and his brightness to everyone he meets, right? But I think it takes years of what he has done in terms of knowledge gathering, intelligence gathering, and curating relationships.
Yes.
Now, you have obviously gone from that bookshop to evolve the business into something. Touch upon, we'll speak about the book and the author element of you later on, right?
Sure,
but let's talk about from a business perspective, and I'm talking about how did this evolve from a bookshop into a talent agency, an event space? Please explain, what do you do now?
Sure. I mean, it's been a journey of 3 decades. And, the first decade was where we had the bookstore. We helped over 200 companies build a library of books, audios, and videos. And it's all about the nonfiction space. In fact, I look back now, this feels like going down memory lane, but, Gulf News actually interviewed Dad and me in the late 90s, and it was on the front page of the tabloid. They said father and son family business, open a bookstore, and then empower creating a learning culture within organizations in bringing books, audios, and videos. Everyone has different learning skills. Till today's podcast, it's YouTube, and plus books still exist. But from that, the question my dad and myself always asked each other is, what new value can we bring to the clients who know us and trust us and like us? And we said, beyond books, we were displaying books at eminent events in the region with speakers like Tom Peters and David Ulrich and numerous other eminent thought leaders that were visiting the region. And we said, how about we bring the authors of these books for live events? And I'm like, but which author would we bring? And we didn't have market research at that time that we went into. We actually said, okay, if the books are doing well, that means there's a connection between the audience and the author. Basically, they're inspired by that author or the content, or it's added value in some way in changing their lives personally or professionally. And we hosted events with the authors of best-selling books. Our market research was books that do well. There would be an aspiration to meet that. And that started the public seminar side of the business, where we started hosting events initially in Dubai, and that expanded throughout the Gulf region, Oman, Bahrain, Qatar, Kuwait, Riyadh, Saudi, to India, and beyond, and bringing eminent authors like Jack Canfield, Chicken Soup for the Soul, Tony Buzan, author of Mind Mapping, Ron Kaufman, Customer Service, Marshall Goldsmith, What Got You Here Won't Get You There. So all these authors, and obviously Stephen M.R. Covey as well on Speed of Trust. So we brought these as large public seminars, and the bookshop, those who used to visit the bookstore started coming for these events. And the larger company then said, we want to bring these authors privately. So suddenly realized that's another business vertical. So it's very organic growth from a bookstore, helping companies build a library, to then bringing public seminars, then privately getting engagements for clients. And then in the recent 10 years, that evolved into executive coaching, training. So it's been a journey over the last 30 years, but literally from the bookstore to events, to in-house, to coaching and training.
I mean, that's interesting you say this, because one of my quotes for something like this has always been about look up and down, sideways of your value proposition, and go talk to your customer. Because what did your customer want before they took your goods or services, and what does your customer want post acquiring your goods and services? Now, if you aren't going to tap into that market, that's a customer lost, because if you don't do it, someone else is going to do it.
Absolutely.
So eventually it could have, been organic in your case, but then there's a real entrepreneurial business lesson case study out here, which is look and talk to your customers. See what do they want. And sometimes the customers don't know what they want, but they're just doing what they have to do. So observe what do they do next.
Right.
So if your customers were coming to the bookshop to seek knowledge, that knowledge could have been transferred in many channels, right?
Right.
Live, private coaching, whatever it might be. And I think that's the crux of the business lesson over here, is that yes, you grew and scaled your business. I mean, there's a simplification when I say it over here in the
Right.
sense, but not to take away the pain and the hard work that went in. But if every entrepreneur out there could just take a sneak peek into their own customer base,
Yes.
and see what did the customers want or do prior and post of them being a customer to that business,
Yeah.
and also deep dive into why are they that customer, right? So I mean, any business out there, it's basically the objective is value proposition. What is value proposition is what problem are you solving, or what need are you fulfilling? Like
Right.
in your case, the need or the problem that was being solved was lack of access to know-how.
Right.
And know-how can be transferred through a book, through a movie, through a live event, through a personal coaching. Could have been anything, right? Could be training, corporate training. And I love the fact that you were able to just tap into multi facets of how that desire of know-how can be delivered.
Yeah.
Now, you met a lot of people on and off the stage,
Yes.
right, as a part of these events. Tell me someone that comes to your mind who you met off the stage but remains one that left an impression.
That's a great question and difficult to pinpoint one, but
The first one. There's no right answer.
in the speaker space, you mean?
It could be. It could be the cameraman. I don't know. Someone who left an impression that comes to your mind right now.
I mean, the first person that comes to my mind is a speaker by the name of Ron Kaufman.
Okay.
And the reason for that is because to me, at the heart of every business is your customer. And he talked of internal customers, external customers, but really it was just his delivery style on stage and off stage. He was two different people. So what really I took away from him is taking care of our customers is just that's a given. What are you doing to create new value? What are you creating to create new experiences? How are you making sure it's memorable? How are you making sure you leave people better than when you left? It was all about creating value with every single person that you met in your life, personally at home and in your workspace. And as long as you do that, you will make people happy, fulfilled, and it will open doors that you couldn't imagine. That's the first thought that comes to my mind when you ask that question.
Okay. Interesting. And when we're at events and when we're on the stage, there's sometimes disappointments too. I mean, you don't have to give me a name unless you want to, but any such memory of something that was hyped up in your mind, but eventually you felt like was a disappointment? And it's not more about who, it's more about why.
Yeah. For me, experiences that have been indifferent or in that space, like would be speakers which have been very time sensitive in their interactions with the audience off stage. That's something made me very uncomfortable because to me it's all about value, it's about relationships, it's about experience. And speakers earn their celebrity, their popularity because of their books or because of their social media. So it's the people that make us popular. So we need to be deeply grateful to each and every person we interact. And we've had experiences with two or three speakers who I would say off stage give very little time to the people who made them who they are. And to me, that is something I am uncomfortable with. And the exact opposite is something where I thrive. People like Jack Canfield and Marshall Goldsmith, they give so much time to the people off stage. They're traveling from all over the world to be here, be it in the Gulf in India, literally 3 hours of book signing, well beyond what was in the contract or the agreement. They go over and beyond. And that to me keeps the people happy, it makes me look good, and it keeps the journey enjoyable and fulfilling. It's not a transaction, it's a collaboration. It's not about scarcity, it's about abundance. And that to me would be what comes to my mind from the question you asked.
And any big speaker, big celebrity name that actually failed on stage, in your opinion?
On stage, um, I'll talk about the experience, but because the experience of speakers who have not been engaging from the stage would be where it's, they've disconnected with the audience. You need to connect with the different personalities in every audience. So you need to connect with them visually with great slides. You need to connect with them with the energy. You need to pause at the right time, emphasize points, perhaps come down off stage at times so that you engage everyone because every one of us are different and our learning skills are different. And so the speakers that are monotonous or just about their story without sharing visuals or without stories or without engaging humor or emotion, then however good they are or famous they may be or popular, the audience switch off. And the key thing today is if you see them using their mobile phones, you've lost your audience. And today it's not easy. It's getting tougher and tougher.
I mean, it's very hard to keep their attention, but
Yeah,
but you can. I mean, it's hard
absolutely.
because there's a lot of irrelevant conversations. There's a lot of irrelevant content. If you keep the content relevant, they are interested in what they're finding relevant, right? Now, when you mention this as being hard, right? I'm also realizing that as a part of someone who attends some of these events, I also see that not necessary that these events bring about a change in the audience. What percentage of the audience would you say from this many decades of experience actually walk away with a change?
So great question, and something I've always been trying to figure out. What can I, as an event organizer, do differently to help people make the transformation that they aspire to make? Because that's why sometimes label our events with these high profile speakers as edutainment. They're like, it's education, there's knowledge, it's entertaining, there's great energy. People take away a lot from events because it's the learning, it's the people they meet, it's the feel good factor. But coming to the point that you mentioned about what I call maybe inspired action, I'm a very advocate for doing things within 24 hours of something that inspired me. Otherwise, I'll forget and it'll be just another idea. So I would say the percentage is generally lower in terms of action, maybe 20%. But I think of what can I do differently for the 80% to help them. And not only do we do a follow-up by email or in terms of providing them a follow-up in terms of execution, what I call strategy execution.
Well, why do you think that's happening? Because, like, listen, I mean, these people are not being dragged into these halls.
Right.
They pay for it. They pay heavy dollar for it. They walk into these rooms. They spend their time at it, and they're not there for any other reason but to be a part of that event. And then we say 80% of them don't really bring about a change in their lives, which tells me is that 80% of these people went to school and learned nothing, right? Kind of a mindset. Um, but why do you think is that the case? I mean, I'm sure you will have, a million ideas on how to stop that from happening. But why does it happen in the first place, do you think?
Actually, the answer, in my opinion, comes very clearly to my mind. Is the 20% who take action within 24 hours from the learning are entrepreneurs, because they're self-invested in that learning. They value the time and they're investing from their personal pocket. And they are saying, what can I learn from today that I can apply in my life and my business immediately to help me get the results? The others could be sponsored. So when they're sponsored by the corporate, by the organization, then it's a day of investing to thought-provoking day, meet people, networking. So that's the distinction. If it's self-invested, there are immediate, tangible driving factors to ownership and taking action. And if it's not, it needs to be the organization who asks questions after the event. What are you going to put into action? And that's
So listen, I love that you said, these events are edutainment. So let's ask the real question here, right? Are these events more of a performance or are they substance?
their performance with substance. It's up to you what you take away from it, really, Jigar.
Right.
To me, it's each one's responsibility. It's your time, your investment to be there. What you as a leader, as an individual, as an entrepreneur, as a senior corporate, going to do with your time? We read books, we listen to audios, we attend seminars. What you take away is your ownership of your personal choices you make. And each one of us has to make those tough choices to say, am I here to have a good time? Am I here to network? Am I here to learn? Am I here to take action? I'm a person of action. I want to take action because either it'll work or I'll learn from it.
Right.
I encourage my friends to do the same. I said, your time is the most valuable asset. Money comes and goes in life. Time is something that we will not get back. This moment, you've invested your whole day to be with us today. And I say it when I do the opening from stage. I said, take notes, put pen to paper, share, find an accountability partner, take action. You will have new value, new experience, and you'll make this day memorable. And you will then make value of your time. So I do my best to encourage those around me in my circle. But yeah, it's up to you.
I mean, I think that boils down to pretty much anyone and everyone, right? Like, do they want to learn?
Yeah.
I mean, you can put a million books in front of an audience. I mean, if someone doesn't want to read a word or someone wants to read a page and, take away life's lessons from that page, that's a possibility as well. Now, we're speaking about these events and the evolution from the bookshop to, the exposure to the authors who then became some sort of entertainers by live stage events and performance. In the midst of all of this, you decided to be an author, and not just an author. You decided to write a book along with your dad. How does that work?
Yeah, actually,
What happened there?
well, actually, I give credit. My dad has always been an inspired author himself. So he's actually written 5 books.
Right.
And friends of mine said, Gautam, you're working with authors, speakers, coaches. When are you writing your book? And I was like, what book would I write about? I just said, I'm too busy. I don't have the time for it. And I procrastinated. I said, one day I'll write the book when it's meant to be. And my dad had written books co-written with Marshall Goldsmith, Jack Canfield, Brian Tracy, were his first three books. And actually, the trigger point came for me in the time of COVID. In 2020, I was invited to Goa for a speakers summit. And they said, Gautam, we've seen you meet so many great speakers, astounding personalities, and we see you're a people's person. We'd like you to guide us and do a session on relationships with people of all ages, of all cultures, all nationalities. And I was like, okay, sure, I'll come along and do that. And I said to myself, I don't want to just come and do a talk and call it building relationships. And I had this term, breaking bread, which is a term I learned from the UK, which basically, the foundation of breaking bread is, you see, every restaurant you go to, bread is served as a starting way to start your meal.
Correct.
Which is quite common, but it's basically breakfast, lunch, or dinner. And I said, okay, let me call the topic of my talk, Breaking Bread, Building Meaningful Relationships.
Nice.
And I did a 30-minute keynote at the speakers conference and got great feedback. And I didn't know that the 30-minute keynote was actually transcribed.
Okay.
And that triggered to say, oh my God, I got a few thousand words here and I can convert this into a book with a few true stories. So it was the aspiration that I'd love to be an author like my dad, at least write one book. I've been told about it for 3 years. Here I've got a keynote that I'm speaking to in Goa for 30 speakers, had great feedback, and the title people loved. So I just think all the dots connected between my dad, the title, the speaking engagement, the feedback. And I said, yeah, it's something that I know. I built my business on breaking bread, which is a story of its own. And, the 100+ dinners we've curated thanks to my better half. And that has led to who we are. And the business has evolved from there.
Okay. And was there ever a book in your journey? Because, you're someone who's, had books all your life now, pretty much, surrounding you. Was there a book that came in your life which at first didn't make sense to you, but then there was a point in your life when you have evolved, have certain level of maturity and experience, went back to and said, oh my God, this is a gem?
Wow. There's so many great books that come to my mind.
Yeah, but there's a book which is, this is amazing on the first read itself. I'm not asking for that read book.
Okay.
I'm asking for the book that you read and you let go, and then a few years later, a few moments later, a few weeks later, I don't know, you went back to and said, oh my God, that was a gem.
It actually would be, surprisingly, but it's Marshall Goldsmith's book.
Okay.
What got you here won't get you there. I'd seen the book quite some time back, much before I met Marshall, but I was like, this didn't resonate with me for some reason. And after meeting Marshall many years ago, 15 years back, and spending time in an event of his, which he was hosting, I said, I want to go back to that book. He engaged me with the content of what he shared, which was 20 habits that every leader needs to have. And I guess when you hear him, there was an emotional connect, and it made me more compelling to go back to read that book, which to me is timeless for every leader. And that book I keep going back to because I know there are some habits which come naturally as a leader and some habits we are work in progress. And so that would be one book which has impacted me personally, professionally, something I'd highly recommend.
Okay. Any book that you feel is overrated? That, listen, I wouldn't say it's a bad book, but then, it's just popular, but you don't find a lot of substance in it. Any such books too out there? Or maybe one?
No particular book comes to mind, but if a book, it doesn't grab me, I read every book at least the first chapter. I'd say what comes to mind, if a book doesn't engage me in the first chapter between the message or the story being shared, I disconnect with it.
Okay.
So there have been probably quite a few books that I have not completed.
Listen, it's like watching a TV series, right?
Yeah.
You started off, you watch the pilot, didn't work, but
Exactly.
that's the journey, right?
Yeah.
And do you think people are generally reading less, or are they now reading more? Specifically books.
My intuition is they're reading less today.
Okay.
They're very, very selective on what they read. People, podcasts, people's listening. So with the podcast, you could be driving your car and listening to a podcast. You could be taking a walk. You could be on the treadmill. You could be in multiple locations. A book, you need to literally press pause, take a moment in life and sit comfortably reading a book. And I think in the generations of today, those in their 20s and their 30s are reading a lot less than we were many years ago or than our parents were. So I think the form of learning is changing. Having said that, I said that the interest to learn is increasing. So in my opinion, more people are hungry to learn because
Yeah.
we need to learn much faster than we've ever learned.
Yeah.
The speed of change is faster than it's ever been. So we need to keep investing. Learning's a lifetime journey.
Yeah, I mean, they have to catch up.
Yeah,
You know what you know at your age. They just expected to know that at the age of 10. So they need to catch up.
So I think the hunger for learning has grown, but reading may not necessarily be the preferred choice of how we learn in that concept.
Right. Again, so, I mean, as an author, when you're writing your book, I mean, I've had to go through this experience myself. But in your case, when you were writing your book, what did it teach you about yourself that you probably never realized prior to writing that book?
Yeah, I think the biggest learning was I had a lot of subconscious thoughts in my mind, which were brought to a conscious level. Appreciation that I have achieved so much in my life and my journey. And I've got a message to share with others that can add value to other people's lives because we all learn through our own lessons of life and our own journey. And through that, if I can empower people through my thoughts. So the biggest aha was the self-realization that my journey is something that can help others.
And was it an easy journey to co-write this book with your father in the equation, or does that actually complicate things?
Actually, my book was written by myself. I would say it was inspired by my dad.
Okay.
So it was a book I wrote. I would say I took his guidance for sure because he'd written 3 books before.
Absolutely.
So I literally asked him like what worked, what didn't, what were the trials and tribulations of writing a book.
So it's your journey, it's your words, obviously his input and guidance into what works when it comes to the business of books, probably.
Correct.
All right. Okay. Yeah. Now, if someone read just one book this year, what would you recommend?
One book this year. One book that comes to mind, it's written many years ago, but I just absolutely love this book, is called The Fish Philosophy. And I say that.
Why?
Why? Because the philosophy of that book, it says work made fun gets done. And I think the environment with which you come to work each day, you got to love what you do. You got to be passionate about what you do. Because with change, with challenges, with difficulties, with speed of knowledge needing change, you got to love what you do. You got to be in the right spirit. So work made fun. You got to enjoy that, that spirit. It's not about 9 to 5. It's not about just getting the work done. I want you to love what you do. And to me, it's a simple parable. It actually goes to a really interesting story about a place in Seattle. A fish market is the story. I'll keep it, concise. And they sell more fish per square foot than anywhere in the United States of America. And they do it because they create an experience. What experience you create for your team and your customers has a direct impact to the results you experience. So you can buy fish in that market anywhere in the world, but yet till today, 20 years on, they're selling more fish per square foot than any place in the United States of America because it's an experience. They engage with the customer. It's fun. There's music. There's analogy. So to me, work made fun gets done is really something I'd recommend everyone read.
Okay, interesting. I mean, we interact with this many, business owners and successful people and some failure stories out there. What's interesting is that each and every one of them has a story. Each and every one of them has probably more than one lesson to share. I mean, I know writing is a difficult job, but requires honesty with your own self. I mean, it brings out things in you that you probably did not realize about yourselves. Like you mentioned it, right? About what was in the subconscious coming to the conscious. Right. And that journey is not an easy one. And it doesn't just happen at a whim, it takes a lot of fighting with yourself to accept the reality of life. And that's the reason why that thing had disappeared in your subconscious. It didn't disappear for no reason to begin with. That's your defense mechanism. That's how psychology works to begin with. So it's like literally fighting your demons to bring them back to surface, to learn lessons from those demons. And I had to do that, as a part of writing my book. And you talk about the fish market, and I mean, there's there's a system and a simplification of what actually works. And I've even mentioned this something as one of the codes in my book, saying focus on the customer needs, right? And focus on organizing and creating a business which is basically curated for the customer, not for your employees, not for your balance sheet, not for your profit and loss statement, not for your stakeholders, except your customer. Because you can have an amazing product, but not have a customer base that actually believes in you.
Right.
And on the flip side, you could have an average product. You don't need to be the inventor. But if you can curate and talk and cater to your customers, you're always going to win.
Absolutely.
And, I'm so happy to have you today, because it's a very special occasion for me, because my book releases tomorrow,
Wow.
The Hidden Code for Business. And I'm going to give you a gift after this. So I'm going to shift the conversation, right? The conversation from who we are to where we are.
Right.
And, must be a reason why a kid who grew up in the UK, went to India, landed up after many a years, at least, and this is my reference to your father, deciding to have Dubai as a place to be, to call UAE home. What was fundamentally the reason for the shift to UAE?
Yeah. So my dad primarily was in the UK, is where he built his business, which was independent of right selection as a business. It was a general trading business, import, export to Europe and West Africa from Asia. But he always from a childhood had this passion for self-help books, audios and videos, and he just loved that. It was a part of his sort of upbringing. And he was actually on holiday in Dubai in the early 90s. He had some friends who were already living here, and he just found it very welcoming. And imagine where it is advanced in the last 30 years. So in the 90s, he enjoyed his experience and the people he met. And he said, well, there's no bookshops here. The only books that are selling here were fiction books and children's
Textbooks and textbooks.
Obviously, yes, absolutely. Schools, university textbooks. And I'm like, your books you're talking about don't exist, but there could be an appetite. And he met a friend who was running programs here from India. And he said, I keep bringing books with me from India because people keep asking for these books. And he literally started as a passion project, to be very honest. In 1993, October, he said, I want to open this bookshop and let's see the experience of it. And he started it as an add-on whilst his business in Europe and Africa was still existing. So that was how it started.
Now, obviously, you've had the experience of, having that business since 1993, evolved into, multiple variations and the likes.
Sure.
But looking back, where do you think and how do you think the business would have been different had it not been Dubai?
Had it not been Dubai.
Because what I want to understand is, what did Dubai contribute? What did UAE contribute to this business?
To me, Dubai was, the welcome was warm. It's a multicultural environment. It was sort of felt like the epicenter of the center of the world. And it just ticked a lot of boxes for my dad initially. And when I came out, just like that, my dad said, I can experience this for 6 months. I actually traveled to different countries across Asia after I graduated. My dad said, yeah, we have family across Hong Kong, Singapore, Jakarta. So I stayed 2 weeks to 3 weeks in each of these cities just to get a feel before I chose Dubai, actually. So I think did 4 or 5 countries after graduation, just staying with family or friends, just to get a sense of the culture, the business, and just get a sense of the vibe. And I came back to Dubai and I said, I choose Dubai. And it's amazing to think that it just came to my mind as you asked that question that, my dad had encouraged me, travel everywhere. You spend time in UK, you spend time all around Europe, because my first 20 years was growing up in London. And he said, do Asia. I traveled across, 4 to 5 countries over 2 to 3 months, came back to Dubai and post the summer, and I gave it 6 months and I've never looked back. I'm so grateful to have chosen Dubai from that time, and it grows on you. It just got better and better and better.
I mean, every time I've asked this question, because I'm probably seeking the answer for myself too, right? I had the choice to be anywhere on planet Earth,
Yeah.
why did I choose this place? Apart from the fact that I grew up here, I was made in UAE, but why, you know, run business here? Why scale business here? Why grow from Dubai? Things like that. But why the UAE model? And I keep finding different answers, and it's just there isn't one right answer. But then when I talk about to people such as yourselves who didn't just come from UAE, they basically migrated to UAE at some point. They decided in their mature sense to call UAE home. Everyone's come back with this answer about this welcome, this energy. And what I've noticed, Gautam, is that people who have never been to UAE, who have never been to Dubai, in the sense where I'm talking about beyond the typical tourist attraction visits, they don't really know what we're talking about, do they?
Not at all.
Because I've traveled around the world and I haven't had this energy in the air ever, anywhere else.
Absolutely.
I have walked through Wall Street. I have worked at financial institutions, be it on the streets of Sydney, name it.
Yeah.
Name some London. I mean, name it all. And
Yeah.
with credit to all those cities and countries for prospering and doing what they're doing right, I have never found this energy that is brought about by a collective human community
Yeah.
of aspiring anyone, and I say anyone because I mean strangers as well, anyone and everyone to bloody grow,
Yeah.
to make it happen,
Correct.
to be number one, without feeling that jealousy, without feeling that if I wish him to be, so if I wish him to be number one, I'm going to probably lose the race. Out here, everyone's happy to lose the race as long as someone wins.
Yeah.
And how do you define that energy to someone who's never been here? Someone who's never done business here, has never spoken to a community here, has never has broken bread with someone out here. How do you explain this to those people?
Yeah. I mean, so many thoughts are coming to my mind from what you shared now. The feeling of I travel the world, we do for business or for pleasure. And every time I land in Dubai, I'm like, it's such a feel-good factor to land in the city. You could travel people, Europe, States, anywhere in the world. You come to Dubai, and there's just such a feel-good factor just from the time you land to the airport, to the welcome, and you come out, So that's one, feel-good factor, which is,
I feel
continent
safer
towards-
coming back
Yeah.
to UAE,
Yes.
uh,
Question about it.
even while conflicts are ongoing. I feel safer landing here than departing here.
Yeah.
I'm more probably got a little bit of more nervous energy around me when I'm not here.
Right.
And it's not, I mean, yeah, there is an element of my own energy, but then I think it's also about the people around me and, the feeling of not just safety, security, health, family, community, but it's genuinely that feeling of that energy. I mean,
Yeah.
the UAE energy, you cannot take it away from here.
Correct.
Because it's brought about by the people who are from here,
Yeah.
who love to grow,
Yes.
and they have made the right selection by selecting UAE because they've come together to a place where the community model is all about growth.
Yeah.
I mean, the mindset.
Community
Yeah,
collab.
Have you had that conversations with people out there saying, oh, you need to have that growth mindset? They don't even know what the hell are we talking about many a times. They're like, what do you mean growth mindset? Do I need to go to the gym? How do you want me to exercise my brain? Like read more? No, that's not growth. That's an element or an exercise that's probably required for you to grow if you want to absorb knowledge. But I mean, but then there's also a flip side, right? When we talk about UAE, it's not as rosy as it looks. It is not that you fly into over here and you succeed.
Right.
Probably what people see on social media are those success stories, right? People see your suit and people see me and you having this chat and this conversation on this couch here. But I'm pretty sure that many people flew into this country in 1993 and very few of them actually survived. And the same continues to happen, be it 2003, 2023, 2026, doesn't matter.
Right.
What do you think is from an entrepreneurial perspective, someone needs to take into account um, before they come here, or at least align their expectations, right?
It's a very, very great point, Jigar, because it's not just turn up in Dubai and things happen. You've got to make things happen, whether it's building communities, it's collaborations. You need, there's a direct correlation to what action you take each and every day, who you spend time with, and the business model that you are creating here consistently to make sure your business not just survives, but thrives. It actually takes me to a point which one of my friends told me many years ago, actually 25 years ago. He said, live locally, earn globally. And he said, this is the place. It's clean, it's safe, it's sophisticated. We keep giving you opportunities. They have the mindset of make the impossible possible. But have a mind where you have a global mindset whilst you live in Dubai. Because when you have a global mindset, whether it's geographically in your business, diversity in your business, the business model, you have to keep evolving. You have to be hungry to grow, hungry to learn. And it gives you that energy. Coming back to the energy, the energy is to keep making things happen and evolving your business. It's not here to come in complacency. I set up in Dubai and it's all going to be great. No,
Yeah, I mean, listen, you
it
could
gives you
know.
the ingredients to be great. Now, what do you do with those ingredients that you're given by being in Dubai?
So
It creates the environment.
yeah. I mean, listen, you also mentioned about how there was a factor of someone who the family knew and a visit made this evolve into, such a wonderful and successful business. But do you think in today's day and age, the relationships in UAE are real or are they transactional?
I find, in my experience, they're very real. It's what you make of those relationships. To me, I'm all about relationships, as you know, not only from my book, but as a person. And I really believe the relationships that you build will ensure that your business is not only sustainable, is fulfilling, and can thrive. So it's again what you make of that. There are obviously all types of business models, all types of personalities, but those who thrive on relationships are the ones that will be long term. Those who are transactional, it's short lived and it's easily readable by people.
I say that people are sometimes, unfortunately, chasing the right rooms while they should have been chasing the right tables. And you are someone who has been responsible for curating those tables. And for those of you in the audience who don't know, Gautam's here, who's someone who probably has the power, whether he may like to tell you and inform you or not, to decide who sits on that table and who doesn't. Right? And that's a very powerful statement, but it's also a very it's a very powerful position that you're in. Now, how do you decide who gets access to these communities? And when we say access, I'm talking about, imagine being on a table with who's who of intelligence, who's who that we can learn from. You mentioned some great authors.
Yes.
I mean, how do you decide who gets to sit on the table with them and spend that 1 hour or 3 hours with them?
So it's a great, great question. It's something I really enjoyed curating over 100 dinners in the last 20 years in curating evenings with eminent thought leaders. So be it Marshall Goldsmith, Ron Kaufman, Stephen M.R, Jack Canfield. When we've hosted these speakers, be it at our home or at external venues, I like to bring not only what I call like-minded people, but like-hearted people. There's a connection where they are authentic, they're grounded, humble. The moment I feel that connection, I make sure that I keep closely in touch with those individuals, those leaders. And when the time is right, and I'm hosting one of those lunches or dinners, I literally send a personal invite to handpick people that I believe are like-minded and like-hearted, will appreciate the presence and the space that we are intentionally creating, not only to contribute, but to learn, to absorb, and make a difference. And that's really
People are in the audience gonna hear us today, and you're gonna get a lot of requests to add a few more chairs to those tables that you're curating. But then I'm pretty sure that you've faced a situation where you have been asked to invite someone to a specific table, but then could have been someone even very powerful, but you decided to say no. Any such experiences?
I haven't had that experience.
Where you've never had to say no to someone?
No, based on it's a table of six people. So, in a positive way, we had one experience recently where there were people who wanted to come for a particular lunch, and it was a table of six plus myself and the author. And we curated a second table and a third table and a fourth table. That
Okay.
happened. So we organically grew, but we kept to our word of a table of six because to me, in that context, as opposed to not wanting a person, I didn't want to change the experience that those six were going to have because we understood those six in that format for that particular experience was going to be meaningful, personal, and make a difference. So, in fact,
Right.
expanded in that way.
So when you do a community based, let's say just not six people focusing on to
Right.
one author, but let's say you're going to have a breakfast session soon where you're going to invite probably 10, 20 people.
Right.
And the objective is just interactions between those 10, 20 people. Do you not sort of want to filter out how people are placed?
My experience so far is I've invited people that I know, I trust, and I believe, and
Okay, so basically everyone's a no unless they're in your trust circle.
trust circle, and I've invited the people in my trust circle to have a plus one.
Okay.
Because my comfort level with the people that I invite is that I know they value the space and they will bring someone. And that's how it's organically grown very slowly but surely. And that's been the format. We haven't said it's not been something opened out, unlimited. There are those formats that exist, but the way I've curated is very intentional.
Okay, and as someone who understands relationships and has even written about it, right? What is one mistake that you see quite often people committing out here in the city when it comes to how they approach growing relationships?
Great question, Jigar. I mean, to me, it's about firstly, relationships are built over time, and you have certain touch points. So when someone is really getting to know you personally, professionally, um, and not in a rush, then I have a great feeling of authenticity of their approach. So it's really about slow and steady wins the race, if I can say that, as opposed to someone talking about business in the very first transaction. I think that's one thing about I love this part of the world is really breaking bread philosophy is in emotionally engaging with people over time and earning the right for business, earning the relationship to talk of business, which should happen organically, not as a means to an end that, we have this business, you have this need, this is the price, let's negotiate. It comes across like, even if I have a need, this is not a very comforting approach. I'm looking to build a relationship. It's not just an event or a transaction. It needs to be an experience and something that is fulfilling and long term.
And that's interesting because I wrote about this in the book that building relationships isn't just, about access.
Yes.
It's actually about having the ability to have intentional access. It's about the ability to understand what are you out there to achieve? What's your intention?
Right.
And I mean, if you're going to be a part of any table, any room, any community, if you're doing it without an intention, you're doing nothing else but wasting your time and unfortunately losing what I call social currency while doing it.
Correct.
Right. So we're going to jump onto something more fun, right?
All right.
Which is called the rapid fire round,
Okay.
where the objective is we're not going to give you time to think.
Okay.
Okay. Less thinking, fast responding.
All right.
All right. Let's go. So are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, short answers, first instinct, right? No overthinking. One book people pretend to have read.
Think and grow rich.
Most overrated founder behavior.
I know it all.
One trait you instantly trust.
A handshake.
One trait you instantly avoid.
Let's see. Wait. Sorry, my mind's blank there.
Okay, moving on. Breakfast, lunch, or dinner? Where do you close a deal?
Breakfast.
Okay. One thing founders misunderstand about relationships,
It's short term.
right? One thing about loneliness people don't admit.
Vulnerability.
What will AI never replace?
Human connection.
The biggest waste of time for founders today.
Being in the wrong circles.
In one sentence, what actually builds trust?
authenticity, humbleness, genuine relationship mindset.
So we've seen an evolution of how knowledge has been consumed, right? I mean, we went through the journey of first having it in print,
Yes.
and then there was this visual, but then people realized that not every book can be translated into a movie,
Right.
or can have a TV show about it. So then it goes back to being in print. But then there was an evolution of technology which allowed for seamless transcribing of those books and be converted into audiobooks.
Right.
What's your opinion about how one should consume a book? Should they be reading a book? Should they be waiting for a movie to launch, or should they just be listening to the audiobooks?
Well, as I shared with me, my experience is everyone has different forms of learning. So to me personally, I read a book once, but I may listen to an audio multiple times. As I said, it could be in the car, taking a walk, in all forms of experience. And as I said today, more and more people are audio and visual. So to me, a movie would be wonderful. That could be time to come. But for now, audio is going to have a huge response in terms of the across genres of all ages. A book, as I said, is something that everyone will cherish to read at least once. And an audio is something that will impact many lives.
I find it interesting you say that, because I've actually found it on the flip side.
Okay.
What's happening is, with so much content out there that's fighting for our attention,
Right.
our brain starts to zone out quite often. It's happening way more than it ever did, right? Just because of the amount of information being fed into the brain. So for someone like me, I've identified that I'm a visual learner. So when I listen to an audiobook, many a times I've noticed I've zoned out and the audio is just playing in the background. It's not to say that that was a bad book. It was nothing to do with the content of that audiobook. And at the same time, when I probably hold that physical paper in my hand,
Yes.
it still keeps me awake. It still keeps me interested. It keeps me engaged, and I actually absorb more information. So yeah, I think it's all about, listen, like you said, in an ideal world, we could all make movies about, even if it's short films, and hopefully technology evolves where AI is not going to replace how books are written, or AI is not going to replace your and my experience, which leads us to writing books.
Not at all.
But hopefully AI adds to the ability to create a visual format of that book without spending a lot of money into creating a movie for it.
Yeah. No, it resonated absolutely to me when I read the book. As I look forward to is that you are fully present in reading and immersing yourself into the knowledge of the book. And then when I listen to the audio, it adds impact even more, because even if I zone in and out personally, it triggers those deeper meaning stories because I read the book.
Right.
So to me, the audio is a reinforcement of what I read in the book to trigger those deeper stories for me. So
Okay,
it's the best of both.
Okay, so you know what? He's not saying it outright, but I'll give you the trick. I've decoded the style here, right? So the decode is that it's not gonna be that one read of a book is gonna be equal to you absorbing the knowledge out of it. What's gonna matter is that if you actually care about absorbing knowledge, you may have to read it over and over again. Whether it's reading, whether it's audio, visuals, doesn't matter. But you'll need to consume that content over and over again if there's genuine interest in learning those lessons that those people have written out there for you. Gautam, that's been a wonderful conversation, talking to you. It's been very clear to me to understand that you come from a place where your experience in not just building relationships, building communities, building events, but also synergizing that with spreading knowledge, spreading know-how. I mean, I see the similarity of the path you walk in line with the path I walk. I have been very transparent from the get-go when I brought my life into public that I'm not doing this because there is a dearth of motivation. I think there are enough people out there with enough visions and ideas and enough motivation as well to make it happen. But unfortunately, there's a lack of know-how. And I made my life's mission to empower entrepreneurship, to build an ecosystem for entrepreneurship. And as a part of leaving a legacy where entrepreneurship can thrive beyond me, beyond my name. And it's a journey. I don't have all the right answers today, and I'm fully aware of it, but I know that there are things that need to happen today. And one of the things I did was write this book. Right. So I've written The Hidden Code for Business Success. It's releasing tomorrow. So technically, you are the first person apart from my son who is going to get this book, and I've signed it for you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jigar. And my heartiest congratulations to you on the launch of your new book. This is really exciting, and looking forward to this reaching in the hands of leaders, not only regionally, but internationally, because I really believe, from what I've known of yourself personally and professionally, I know that your experience and words of wisdom will impact many people's lives. So all the best of success with this book, and thank you so much for gifting me with this today.
Now, because there are many people who admire knowledge, but I know you're one of those rare gems that admires knowledge in the form of a book, and that's something that you had mentioned to me. And you had asked me when am I writing my book, and I told you I had written it, and it's with the publishers, and it's going to be out soon. So I love that how I was able to close the circle on that conversation today by having given this book to you. And I hope and that there's no pressure on me, that there is substance in the first chapter and you actually finish the book.
I'm looking forward to it.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gautam, for being here. Thank you for being such an inspiration, for the cause, because it's a lonely race, not just entrepreneurship, but also the journey of spreading that know-how. I know that there are a lot of speakers out there, authors out there, and they do a fantastic job of motivating the audience. But then I also know that there is a dearth of people actually sharing their experiences and translating them into know-hows. So thank you for being, a fellow companion on this journey, is how I would like to put it. Thank you so much.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much, Jigar, and congratulations on the book, and thank you for this valuable time together.
Thank you.